is here!
Here she is indeed. She may look really cute, like a kitty, but don't be deceived by her appearance, as she truly is a rather ferocious tiger. With an M0P1 Yixuan, M0P1 Fufu, and M6P0 Pan, I managed to get kills on both Marionette and Miasma Priest this rotation. So let's have a look at both of these runs. Marionette is actually a very easy fight for this team. It really didn't take me that many attempts to get the kill. Most of it was just figuring out the route to follow, and from there things more or less fell into place. Usually Marionette is a very annoying fight with a lot of random chance. And this is because her base stun duration is only 7 seconds. If you kill her clones, then that duration increases by 1 second for a maximum total stun duration of 12 seconds, which means you need 5 clone kills to be able to actually get full combos. For some comps, like Hugo, it's outright impossible to get the full duration normally. I have a breakdown video on Marionette with Hugo that I urge you to check out if you're interested. But between clone random chance, Marionette constantly moving around causing attacks to whiff, and even body blocking with her clones, this is usually an incredibly obnoxious fight. Thankfully, Fufu's Daze build is pretty bad. It's to the point where Pompeii, a fire-weak boss, will have Fufu struggle to hit 4 stuns if you aren't following good lines and planning out your routing. But for Marionette, this actually works out great. That seems counterintuitive, but this is actually good for this fight. A longer time to stun means more time to get clones. To be fair, even on Fufu's weak Daze build, you likely still won't have time to kill 5 clones on Marionette for the first and last stuns without a bit of luck. But it does help making it easier. Fufu also builds enough Daze in this fight where getting 4 stuns on Marionette really isn't a problem. So even with subpar luck, it's not too hard to get a kill. There isn't much to talk about the builds. Just get as many substats as you can on each one. Luck won't let you be picky. Yixuan's Wenjin is really strong, so very much non-negotiable for a kill. For Fufu, since we're using her signature Wenjin, that means we only need enough crit rate substats to max out King of the Summit while using an attack percent D4. That lets us run impact percent D6, which is really helpful. Daze is quite lenient in this fight, so a 2-piece Woodpecker or Astral Voice in theory should be fine, but parry RNG may become a bigger deal, so keep that in mind. Pan will want enough attack to max out his buff and then as much energy regen as possible. Here I'm using 2-piece Swing Jazz, an energy regen D6, and Lucy's Wenjin. This build is pure energy regen, no Wenjin effects needed. You could substitute his D6 for impact percent, and that could help you use other 2-piece effects on Fufu. Regardless, the best A-rank engine for Pan is going to be an energy regen one. The problem we face is that Pan's Wenjin is just really bad. It gives energy on recovers HP, not get healed, so his ultimate won't trigger it if your party's maxed out. Alternatively, it recovers energy when squad members take damage, not get hit, which means defensive assists do nothing. And before you think it's not working because I'm assisting on Pan, any squad member does include Pan himself, so it's just a terrible Wenjin to use if you can meet his attack requirements of substats. His Daze isn't anything to write home about, and since we have more than enough for the fight, it's better to get more energy regen to better sustain his buff and Astral Voice. With that out of the way, let's have a look at the actual fight. We run in on Yixuan, and as she starts capped out on adrenaline, we want to be spending that so natural regen can do its work. For that, a charged Ink Manifestation string can full is about as much damage as we can get. While Qingming Eruption casts, we can swap the Pan then use his basics to build up his energy for an EX. We go straight into Fufu's defensive assist after Yixuan gets the buff. We parry back on Yixuan to help build some more decibels, as one parry is all we need to max out her decibels of Fufu's increased cap for the stun. Although we could defensive assist on Fufu, it's better to do so on Pan if we want to get his ultimate in the first stun, as he needs at least 1 defensive assist's worth of decibels for that. Since, as a defender, he only uses up 1 assist point, we can still do 1 more Fufu defensive assist with the remaining point. In general, doing just 1 Pan defensive assist is rarely a bad call, as it means you aren't losing out on any other character's defensive assist, so more decibels for all. Once we're all out of points, priority shifts to Yixuan's technique points and adrenaline. If anything, I wasted some regen, sitting at cap for far longer than I should, and messing up the timing on the Ink Manifestation parry. 2 full Ink Manifestation strings on 1 single cast Ink Manifestation should be enough setup and technique points. So once I'm ready, I swap the Pan, EX for his buffs and Astral Voice, then begin Cloud Shaper for a standard early chain burst combo. You note that I wait in the chain select menu for as long as possible, and this is something you want to do to maximize damage. Depending on how early or late your chain trigger tech is, or ultimate animation cancel as it's often called, Yixuan may not be able to get all hits of her ultimate out when using Fufu's chain. It's to the point where enemies will even flinch halfway through as they get hit during the slowdown. So try to stay in the chain select menu for as long as you can, as otherwise you may not be able to get all hits out. Back to the run, and the first chain we pick is Fufu's, applying the King of the Summit buff just in time for Yixuan's ultimate. Then after we've waited long enough, chain back to Yixuan, hitting precisely 4000 decibels, cancel, and Qingming Skyshade. As I'm very low on adrenaline here, I use Auric Array, then swap the Pan for his ultimate, which further increases Yixuan's adrenaline regeneration due to her passive, and then EX back into her. Since we couldn't kill 5 clones before the stun, we're missing out on over a second of channeling time. But with Marionette soon going onto her invulnerability phase, we want to blow all of our resources as fast as possible before she goes. So into a Fufu ultimate it is. You notice I stay on Fufu here and don't immediately swap back to Yixuan, and this has a purpose. If you swap out of Fufu too early, it's very likely that she'll go into an aftershock chain, and then start wasting her momentum stacks on clones instead of Marionette. Daze is lenient for this fight, but not that lenient, so just hold back on her for a bit to pocket her Daze build for after the clones. Even then, Hui may end up bumping into one of them and you get an aftershock chain wasted anyways, as it happens on this run, so there is a bit of luck involved. Either way, once clones are done, we go into an Ink Manifestation parry, then do the full string just before capping out on adrenaline and swap to Fufu to spend her EX, both refreshing King of the Summit for this out of stun period and preventing her from overcapping. As you can see, with Fufu's ultimate, EX, and multiple aftershock chains, the Daze buildup is actually pretty good. Since we've already gotten 5 clones skilled from the invulnerability phase, rushing through to stun is fine. Given the amount of adrenaline we have on Yixuan, it's also okay to EX without parries. I do 1 Pan EX to build a first Astro stack. With all of his energy regen, we have more than enough resources to use 2 before the stun. Then build a bit extra adrenaline on Yixuan, benefiting from her perfect dodge regen, and accidentally swap to Fufu instead of Pan, as he was still on field from his EX. So I grief by completely wasting Fufu's EX when I meant to use Pan's. No matter, we swap to Pan, use his EX for a second Astral Voice stack, then go straight into another early chain burst combo. It's the same as before, wait as long as we can, Fufu chain, Yixuan chain, chaining Skyshade, and as we're low on adrenaline again, Auric Array. Here's where building Pan with full energy regen really shines. We got 2 EXs done before the stun, then he's already got enough energy for a 3rd EX, so we get a 3rd Astro stack and a nearly fully channeled Cloud Shaper. The decibels are starting to align again, so at this point it's just fishing for parry opportunities while building technique points. As before, parrying on Pan is good for assist point management, and then I swapped to Fufu thinking I could have her EX up on time. But alas, no energy, so a bit of a slip up. Either way, we still have time to swap to Yixuan and get another parry on Fufu, building enough decibels for an ultimate which we use before Marionette is due to go for her second invulnerability phase. As we're going to be going into the stun right after, I do an EX on Pan to build the first Astral Voice stack, deal with the clones, and then start the setup. We don't want to do Qingming Eruption here as we're already very close to stun, and we can save the adrenaline for Cloud Shapers anyways, so just swapping to Pan and then doing a second EX for another Astral is enough. And onto our 3rd early chain burst combo it is. It's the same as before, and since ultimates are now up again, we can get a Pan ultimate into EX. I was just a little short on energy here, but stalling with the ultimate animation and a single basic is enough to build for a 3rd EX and 3rd Astro stack, from which we get a fully channeled Cloud Shaper. Now, with just 40 seconds left, we do want to hurry up and get the 4th stun, so we'll want to EX on Fufu and parry on her as often as possible for decibels. We get quite lucky with a double parry prompt, giving plenty of decibels to Fufu. Another double parry opportunity, but with Fufu being relatively loaded now, I opt for an Ink Manifestation parry to start building technique points and a swap to Pan for the first Astral Voice stack. With Fufu ultimate ready and us being almost at stun, we send it. With 24 seconds left on the clock, it'd have been better to just swap to Pan to build a bit of energy for his second EX, but we do want to stun shortly after the 20-second mark, as between 20 and 15 seconds, Marionette will try to go to her invulnerability phase, and we really want to be skipping it. I did have time here, but I'm a bit of a coward and just speed through to the stun instead. This isn't good as we only have 1 Astro stack, and that'd be expiring at 13 on the clock, so most of Qingming's Skyshade ultimate misses out on it. Frankly here, the best bet would have been to just go into Auric Array, then dash cancel into a Cloud Shaper to get as much damage and stun as possible. Since we sped through to the stun, there weren't enough clone kills to extend the stun duration long enough. So me going into Pan for his ultimate and EX is a bit of a waste, as there's no need for the extra adrenaline regen. But with the stun ending early, Marionette would be about to go into her 3rd invulnerability phase. But thankfully, even out of stun Cloud Shaper hits hard enough to land a kill. And that's the run. Being entirely honest, it was a bit of a sloppy run. I mess up Ink Manifestation parries, accidentally waste resources on Fufu, miss out on double Astro application, and use Pan's ultimate when I shouldn't. And not to mention the mid-lane clone RNG, meaning half the stuns weren't particularly strong. But even then, with no mindscapes and only signature weapons, it was still good enough to get a kill. I ended up trying out a run of Caesar's signature to see how it performed, and despite me playing significantly worse, I had enough days to stun at nearly 25 seconds left on the clock, and killed with 12 seconds left. The stun didn't even get to end. So despite mildly poor luck and mediocre execution, you can make up for lacking substats with Caesar's signature, meaning kills are well within reach. So I do mean it when I say Marionette is quite an easy fight for this lineup. Although Marionette was really easy, Miasma Priest was a bit of a struggle. At this time, Fufu's middling days build is a problem that becomes painfully evident. It felt like most of my runs ended at the point where getting the stun just 1 second earlier would have been enough. In this fight, the damage output is secondary to days. It didn't take too long, and most of it was just trying to figure out a good route, and there were quite a few pieces to that puzzle. After settling on how I was going to approach the encounter, it didn't take much to get a kill. So it's not a hard fight once you know what to do, but that doesn't mean it's easy. This is because performance is heavily dependent on luck. For example, Miasma Priest won't build any days while she's in the blocking stance, and if that happens to sync up with when Fufu lands her aftershock chain attack, you're missing out on a bunch of days that's critical for this comp. In fact, because it builds no days and sets all damage taken to 1, if she happens to do it before the stun, you're pretty much guaranteed a restart. The same is true when changing phases, where she's unable to be stunned during it, making it really annoying. During the Miasma Shield phase, the priest will often teleport around the field while being invulnerable, causing ultimates to whiff. It's not very clear when exactly she does it, as she seems to be able to interrupt attacks halfway with a teleport, like doing so halfway during a parabol attack. And missing ultimates is not just a huge days loss, but also a really big deal for breaking the Miasma Shield, which is very obnoxious. And the biggest deal is just the opener. This fight is one that lives and dies by your stun times, so if Miasma Priest doesn't give you many parabol attacks, especially before the first stun, you end up not being able to build enough days and decibels to get enough stuns in the fight. There's even a specific twin sword attack that Miasma Priest will do, where if you block all 4 hits, you get a free impair and she goes into the exhausted state, taking an extra 30% damage despite not being in stun. This isn't needed for a kill, but it sure gives a nice extra bit of damage to help. The worst part is that Yixuan's long ultimates are really punishing. Normally, when you use an ultimate, despite the timer hitting 0, the fight won't end until the finish your attack portion of your ultimate lands. Look closer and you realize that this is not the case. And note how the counter hits 64,053, then withdraws halfway during Yixuan's ultimate. The damage from the ultimate brings the health bar down to 0. We have killed the boss here. But then you check the end card score and it's back to 64,053 from when the counter withdrew. All this is to say that you do have to route this fight in such a way that you're using Yixuan's ultimates long before that counter hits 0. Thankfully, with a bit of luck on blocking stances, teleports, and parabol strings, the actual routing behind this fight is really not that difficult. The build for Yixuan on Fufu is exactly the same as the one used for the Marionette kill, so that's as many substats as you can get on Yixuan. I don't even have 68% crit rate, which is what I'd need to have for it to be max in combat, but it's close enough. Fufu though is non-negotiable with a 2-piece shock star and an impact percent d6. It's fine if you can't max out her buff, as the priority is days, so this time around, 2-piece woodpecker is not something I think would be sustainable. The big change is Pan's build. Even though his days isn't good, we really need as much as we can get, so we swap out the 2-piece swing for a 2-piece shock star. We also run impact percent d6. The lack of energy regen is something that's very much felt, but using an energy regen Wenjin is at the very least enough to support 1 EX before every stun, so we'll be rolling with that. Get enough in substats to max out his buff, and that, alongside the 1 stack astrals we'll get throughout the fight, will help us land a kill. So let's go from the start and see how it all plays out. We open by going in with Yixuan and charging Ink Manifestation, but unlike the Marionette fight, we're swapping out as soon as Celestial Cloud Blitz break begins. This is because we need to build enough energy to EX on Pan fast, as Miasma Priest will attack her right after her first phase change. An EX into Yixuan just in time to parry the lunge with Ink Manifestation. From there, a Celestial Cloud Blitz break into a defensive assist with Fufu. I try setting up Fufu's spinning hold basic dash attack, and this is something that should be done when possible. The dash attack itself won't build any extra gauge, I'll refer you to the pinned comment as to why, but it will reset the internal cooldown on Hu Wei's basic attack, which can still help us build might faster. Although that's what I tried to do, I didn't have enough time for it, but with a really good reason. This is because we're getting another parabol string, so we do a Yixuan parry into Pan. Ideally, we don't want the defensive assist with Pan in this fight. Every last parry should be fed to Fufu to maximize days and decibels, but as Fufu was still on field, it forced us into Pan. We get incredibly lucky here with a twin sword exhaust attack. Note how the assist point gauge has changed to be infinite? This is why parrying on Pan isn't necessary, as the critical parable strings don't rely on assist points. The Twin Sword exhaust attack will be 4 hits, and there's a specific order we want to follow to maximize our build here. First to Fufu, but don't use her assist follow-up, as that'll lock her out from being selected for future parries. Then Pan, and go into assist follow-up, as we won't swap to him again. For the third, it's back to Fufu, this time using her assist follow-up. Then lastly, Yixuan. And we finish on her because the 4th defensive assist will put Miasma Priest in the exhausted state, where she takes 30% extra damage from the out-of-stun multiplier. To capitalize on this, we want to end on Yixuan so as to maximize damage output. Once the assist follow-up is over, we go straight into a charged ink manifestation to burst down as hard as we can. We now have enough technique points for the stun, so it's just biding our time. You may be tempted to use Fufu's EX, but don't. It will become very important later. After the sword attacks, Miasma Priest will always go into the red clock phase, where explosions show up on the ground. Here, we actually want to get hit, as these are knockbacks. With this, we can quick assist the Pan to build 1 Astral Voice stack. Next is just building a little bit more days before we swap the Pan again for his EX, granting our 2nd Astral Voice into the early chain burst combo. So as with Marionette, wait as long as we can to give Yixuan as much time as possible for her Talisman ultimate. Chain to Fufu to get King of the Summit, then back to Yixuan through her chain, onto a cancel and then the Qingming Skyshade ultimate. It's important to not use Auric Array. I explain the mechanics behind this in detail on my updated Yixuan combo guide, which I strongly recommend you watch. But in short, Auric Array's Vital View lets us slow down time, and this is critical to be able to skip the Miasma Shield. So instead, we'll just go into a Cloud Shaper, but be mindful of the adrenaline spend here. We don't want to be locked out of Cloud Shaper mid-stun, so end the first just before the gauge is about to cross the 40 adrenaline threshold, and recast Cloud Shaper to get a 2nd use in stun. Because we got the Twin Sword exhaust attack from Miasma Priest and used Ink Manifestation without a refund, this means we went into the stun with less adrenaline than normal. So unfortunately we are missing out on damage here, but at least it gives us time to go into Auric Array as soon as the stun ends. Fufu's ultimate is up and we want to get as much days as the game will allow, so we go straight into it. Once it's done, Fufu is now maxed out on her might gauge. We don't want to wait 4 seconds for Hu Wei to trigger her Aftershock chain, so instead we'll go into her hold basic dash attack to spend momentum and manually force a chain. From there, we spend her EX to build more might and days and swap to Yixuan in preparation for the purple clock onslaught attack. I do mess up here, as what you want to be doing instead is making use of Ink Manifestation to build enough technique points to set up for the ultimate, like so. I do nothing but a few basics before the onslaught comes, but it's still salvageable. We want to maximize decibel build for Yixuan and Fufu, so that means forward and back swapping between them only. No pan swaps to be had here. Since we started on Yixuan and parried every attack, this sets us up nicely. But if not, just make sure that once Miasma Priest flies up for her final 3 dive attacks, the first defensive assist should be on Fufu. That way, we get the first on Fufu, 2nd on Yixuan, then a 3rd on Fufu again, allowing us to go straight into her assist follow-up. From this, using her EX into a Pan EX should just about give us enough to stun Miasma Priest. I did try to lab another way, but came across issues. If you got enough parries in the lead up to the stun, and alternated between Yixuan and Fufu on the onslaught correctly, Fufu's ultimate should just about be ready. So you could just do 1 manual Aftershock chain by using her hold basic dash attack, then go straight into ultimate. Although that is a lot of days, the time it takes usually meant I wasn't able to get Pan's EX to land before Miasma Priest recovered. If you pocket Auric Array for this instead of using it early, then it should be a lot easier, so it's an alternate route. For the kill run though, we're in a bit of a pickle on the combo setup, as I didn't build enough technique points for Yixuan's Talisman ultimate. This is a direct result of not doing Ink Manifestation before the onslaught, but there's ways around it. If you find yourself in this situation, you can make use of manual chain to get a 2nd Cloud Shaper cast and build enough gauge to do the early chain burst combo, which is how I adapted my failure to Ink Manifestation pre-stun. The combo is now back to standard. We want Miasma Priest to go into her Miasma Shield phase as fast as possible, so no need to pocket Auric Array's Vital View to slow her down. Although Pan does have his ultimate ready, it's a damage loss to use it in stun, and we also want to save it to help break the Miasma Shield. So instead, we go straight into his EX for a 2nd Astral stack, and to get back to Yixuan, where we finish the combo with Cloud Shaper. Once the stun ends, do not interrupt Miasma Priest. That means no ultimate and no Auric Ink anomaly. Just let her do her thing and activate the Miasma Shield. As mentioned before, she will teleport near randomly during this phase and become fully invulnerable, which means you may end up wasting ultimates here. It's very difficult to control the RNG, and it is very much down to luck, but there are some attacks that she'll usually fully commit to. When she does the lunge attack, if the second lunge is not a parable one, this is an ultimate window, so we make use of this opportunity to go straight to Pan and use his ultimate. If the next attack also isn't a parable string, that's another ultimate window, so onto Fufu we go for her ultimate this time. Timing was very tight here, as Miasma Priest teleports right after the parable string, but with barely a few frames left, we get everything in. Now it's just building technique points while waiting for the onslaught attack, which will come after the explosions. Sure enough, onslaught attack it is, after which we do the same parry order as before. This time though, we aren't going to get the 3 dive attacks, as once the Miasma shield breaks, Miasma Priest will be interrupted, so we reserve the final parry to Pan. Depending on how much stays you still need, you can either leave the final parry to Fufu and then go into her assist follow-up, or do as I do here, using Pan, not using his assist follow-up so as to not waste time, and then going straight into his EX. Ideally, you don't want to stun straight after the shield breaks, as Miasma Priest will often go into a phase change. And we do want her to phase change, as if you recall, her stage buff has her take 30% more crit damage after phase changes, stacking twice. We don't have time to let her do 2 phases, but better one than none. This time, we did build enough technique points to set up for the early chain burst combo, so another one it is with all the bells and whistles. Since the Miasma shield break gives a ridiculous amount of resources, Yixuan is fully stacked here, as is Pan. So we do the standard combo with Auric Array, into Pan EX, and then 2 Cloud Shapers. With 34 seconds left on the clock, there's very little time to spare. Optimizing Daze build becomes very important. But this is the point where most of my runs died. Fufu has enough decibels for her ultimate, so we send it. Like with our setup for the first stun, we want to make use of our ability to force her aftershock chain after a hold basic dash attack to speed up her Daze build. I do mess it up here, doing a regular basic before a dash attack, but eventually it goes off. Then, use an EX to keep her might meter high. We swap to Yixuan to build some more adrenaline for a bit and to check the time left on her ultimate regen buff. Remember that squadmate ultimates mean more adrenaline for Yixuan, so if possible we want to stagger Pan's ultimate so it goes off as the buff is about to run out. And then it's back to Yixuan. Unfortunately, I interrupt my Miasma Priest with an Auric Ink anomaly just before the explosions, so we're missing out on a refund. But with the adrenaline regen from both Fufu and Pan ultimates and only 20 seconds left on the clock, there's no time to spare. I charge Ink Manifestation into Celestial Cloud Blitz Break, then Fufu for one last EX before stun. At this point, parries aren't important, as we should have enough Daze build. If anything, getting Pan's defensive assist and follow-up just delayed the setup, and with 15 seconds left on the clock, we're very near the limit. So we rush into Pan's EX, quick assist to Yixuan, and set up our final combo. If you see Fufu doing her momentum spin, try to time your release of Cloud Shaper before she gets might for her aftershock chain. This is just for ease of execution, as the fire text briefly pauses the game, which can eat your inputs and mess up the combo. With everything set up, we go into one final early chain burst combo and ultimate as soon as we can. Thankfully, we have more than enough damage. With 3 seconds left on the clock, Yixuan finishes off Miasma Priest, securing the kill. And that's the run. Overall, Fufu is actually quite a fun character. At first you'd think she really is just an AFK agent that you set and forget, but resource management is a really big deal with her. Not to mention little things, like using her hold basic dash attack to reset her wave's internal cooldown, trying to control the timing on her aftershock chains by swapping to her or staying on her for longer than you otherwise would, or just making use of the ability to force trigger aftershock chains with momentum to get days out of her when you need it the most. Her fighting style can look a little derpy, and her weapon being a mechanical popcorn pot wasn't on my bingo card, but Senior Fufu is no slouch. For someone so tiny, she sure packs one hell of a punch. I hope you enjoyed these Deadly Assault run breakdowns. At the very least, I sure as hell enjoyed getting these runs. Although I do focus more on guides and tech, I do my best to make sure that I can back up my claims. Tech is only as good as it helps you get better scores after all. So if you're interested in detailed character guides, want to learn more about niche tech, or you're just interested in breakdowns of fights and fundamental game mechanics, then do like, share, subscribe, and ring the bell. I've got more videos coming. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time.